This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition, a roadshow edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson with you, along with Michael Remis, coming to you live from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, covering the Olympic curling trials with to represent Canada out of Beijing on the pebbled ice. So lots of Manitoba content here. Huge matchup tonight between Jen Jones and Carrie Anderson. We'll hopefully bring in Ted Wyman from the rink a little later on in the program. But of course, today, lots of Jets talk coming off a disappointing loss last night at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Murat will join us in about 45 minutes or so. And coming up, first off on the program, cannot wait to welcome in Blue Bomber linebacker Adam Bighill. The first place Blue Bombers chilling this week, getting ready for the winner of Sunday's game between the Stamps and the Saskatchewan Roughriders for that December 5th game here in Winnipeg. Over 27,000 seats already sold for this game. If you haven't already picked up your tickets, you're definitely going to want to do so. A very special day for many reasons, including, of course, the great Bob Irving's final broadcast. And I was speaking with some people at the Bombers earlier today. Bob will be celebrated before the game, as he should be for just his incredible Hall of Fame career. So if you are a Bomber fan, if you've enjoyed Bob's calls over the year, if you've gotten into this team that has been the best in the Canadian Football League since kickoff earlier this year, December 5th is the place to be. IG Field. But we are going to get to the Jets. We'll talk. Remis was at the game last night. I was watching here from Saskatoon. We'll touch on that. More on the Bombers. Lots going on in the National Football League as well. And yes, a little more on the curling in the final portion of the program before we sign off for today. As always, big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen, whether we're in Winnipeg or on the road, including our newest sponsor, Vita Health Fresh Market, our friends at Culligan Water, Donnie and the guys over at Manitoba Battery, the Hespeaks and Royal Sports, T-Knot, the Knot Auto Corp crew, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, our whiskey and the official whiskey, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and of course, our betting sponsors right here at Coolbet Canada. By the way, check the Coolbet social feeds if you're watching with us live on YouTube. We have a video up we did just a little bit before got into the lock shop with Dustin Nielsen on this afternoon's draws on the men's side of things, and then a little bit later on, more on the women's. As I mentioned, huge all-Manitoba matchup tonight between Jen Jones at 4-0 and Carrie Anderson at 2-2. Let's get Remis in here. What's going on, my friend? How are you? We did have quite a few laughs setting up the camera shot beforehand, but as he said, lots of new things, being separated and doing this one with me, having to figure out a lot of this stuff on the road. But we're here, we're good, we're sounding good, and lots to talk about today coming off that tough loss.
Yes, we're here at the, well, you're in Saskatoon. I'm still at the command center here in my basement, but yeah, we're figuring out as we go. I see Schickster commenting that you looked a bit different today. We've lowered the camera a bit. I'm looking to make adjustments as we go. Might have to make some additional changes, but yeah, feeling good. Tough loss for the Jets last night. I really thought, after the first period they were going to take it for sure, but then I also had these flashbacks to the St. Louis game a couple weeks ago where the Jets dominated and weren't able to come out with the win. I kind of felt like that was maybe in the cards just because I was like, the Jets are playing so well in this first period. They should win this game, but they're only up by a goal. So Pittsburgh can score, and they're right back in it. And that's exactly what happened. I did not see the Jets falling off a cliff in the third period. I don't want to say not showing up, but after outshooting Pittsburgh for the first two, Pittsburgh took it to them. I think you were saying the shots were something something wild because at one point I think the Jets had like a 10-shot lead, and then
20-9. It was 20-9 at one point for the Winnipeg Jets, and then it seemed like the game flipped. I know Avco Cup put that out. I mean, as I said last night, I mean, I didn't have the opportunity to hear the game with sound where I was watching it. We had a screen on that. There was a screen on the football game. There's a screen on the curling. And, I was focusing more on the hockey than everything else going on. But, without hearing what's going on with the commentary and whatnot, you do lose some of it. But one thing that was always there was the shot clock. And, I was sort of with you. I thought the Jets really controlled that first period. They had a ton of opportunities. Dominic Toninato, a hard work. And I thought the fourth line really played well. And, they got some more ice time as the game went on and certainly earned it. But something happened in that second period. And by the end of the second, you saw things really get tight. And then the third period, Remis, was dominated by the Pittsburgh Penguins. And, hearing Paul Maurice after the game, he was pretty clear. A lot of times he'll sort of, stick up for his team and say, well, you know what, there's some things that didn't go our way, but I liked it for the most part. And I think that would be accurate talking about, the Edmonton game, even a good portion of the Vancouver game minus what's happening on special teams. That wasn't the case last night in the third period. And I mean, you were there. I mean, did it seem like they were a frustrated team? I mean, they have to be at some point. I mean, I don't know what the Jets' shooting percentage is over the course of these last 4 or 5 games. But, I mean, for a team that has a lot of offensive skill and had certainly, up until the midway point or later on in the second half of this hockey game last night, been putting a ton of pucks on net. I mean, they're getting stoned by Tristan Jarry. Now, Jarry did come into the game last night with 2 shutouts in a row. He had been brilliant as of late, so they were getting a hot goalie. But they're sort of making every goalie look hot right now, whether it's Demko, whether it's Stuart Skinner. It's sort of been the same conversation. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of people after the game saying that maybe that caught up on the Winnipeg Jets and they got away from their game because they weren't having success putting it in the net. They certainly were getting a lot of chances to put it on the net, but that changed in a big way in the second half and especially in that third period.
Yeah, again, I thought they had a ton of great chances in the first period. It seemed to me like I'm like, okay, well, if they keep doing this, they're on their way to winning this game. But the problem was they didn't keep playing the way they played in the first. They couldn't get some of those high-danger chances. I mean, third period, Kyle Connor had the breakaway. And actually a bit of a scare off the start where they had a Gensel and Crosby on a 2-on-1. Hellbuck had to make an awesome save. But then after that, I thought the Jets were in a lot of control. Shout out to the fourth line, Dominic Toninato, picking up a rebound in the high slot. I don't know if it was a rebound, sorry, a shot that went off a player in the high slot and put it past Jarry. But they really couldn't get those high danger chances later. I think you have to be kind of frustrated for the Jets. You're doing all the right things. You're out shooting your opponent aside from the third period, and you're playing well, but you're not getting the results. And I was talking to you, before the start. I'm saying Toronto was kind of in a similar situation to start the season where, they weren't winning, their top guys weren't getting goals, but you had some guys like Mike Kelly saying, hey, no one wants to hear this right now, but they're playing the right way. They're getting the shots, and what do you know? Those guys have been on a hot streak now, so maybe it's a bit of a cold spell where it's not going in, but you have to think they keep doing what they're doing. Aside from that third period yesterday, I mean, the last couple of games, it's been pretty solid. So again, I said this yesterday. It's not like a couple of years ago where they were getting outshot over and over again and still winning. Now they're losing while, for majority of the game, outplaying their opponent. Now, special teams, we can say that was a problem in Vancouver. Special teams, obviously, yesterday, they did not capitalize. There's only 2 power plays each. I thought they could have called a couple more on both sides, but they did not. I thought the Jets' penalties actually yesterday, the ones that they called seemed kind of bogus. I'm not saying the Dubois was kind of like, what did I just get a penalty for? And Andrew Kopp
was absolutely bewildered when he was called for that penalty going to the box. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was looking around thinking that it was maybe somebody else, that they'd got the wrong guy, but, went in. Listen, we've spent a lot of time. Let's talk about special teams for a minute, because that is a huge issue for the Winnipeg Jets right now. I mean, I think you can certainly make an argument. We'll take away the third period for last night's game just for the lack of this conversation. Through the Edmonton game, certainly through the Vancouver game, like we focused a lot on the penalty kill and the inability to kill penalties. But there's another side to that coin that's not good right now, and that's the power play for the Winnipeg Jets. And is it as mysterious as what's been happening with some of the goals that have gone in when they've been killing a penalty? When you're having issues like that at 5-on-4 down, you need to make things up on the other side of things. And with the amount of skill the Winnipeg Jets have and the historic success they've had with this power play, it really is struggling. And to be honest, I think that speaks to something we were mentioning before with the shooting percentage and the amount of chances they've been getting and the inability to make things happen. Now, I do think, I know we spent a lot of time talking about the overtime in the Edmonton game, with the power play in overtime, with Wheeler at the point sort of controlling it. Didn't really like that look. But that was, how many times are we talking about 4-on-3? Both units have had a real issue, capitalizing on these glorious opportunities. I believe 1 of 18 for these last opportunities right now for the Winnipeg Jets. And, even if you're doing a good job of killing penalties, you have to make a point of, taking advantage of some of these power plays. And right now, that's not happening for the Winnipeg Jets. And, you can make an argument that the way the Jets are playing at 5-on-5 has been, for the most part, as good as we've seen in a long time. But if your special teams aren't working right now, especially a penalty kill that, continues to put you behind the 8 ball and the inability to capitalize on the power play, you're going to leave some points on the table. And that's certainly what the Jets have done over this past week.
Yeah, and they had 2 chances yesterday. I do have to say, I like the Nate Schmidt edition. He was ripping the puck pretty good. He's been fun to watch. And I see a comment from Mitch in chat. He says, as soon as they move 26 off the right half wall, this PP has gone downhill. I'm not sure about that. You had success with Connor on that side and Morrissey on that side ripping one-timers. We haven't seen too much of that lately, but I do think, they're trying to find a spot for Wheeler. I mean, the power play used to revolve around him on the right wall, feeding, Bufflin and Line, now Scheifele and Pionk, I guess. But they've kind of put him, in the bottom and below the net. And I guess maybe it's not maximizing, his passing ability that we've seen so well the last couple of years. But they've gone with the one-timer from that side. So I'm not sure what you do here for the Jets. I think it'll come around. I'm not. Paul Maurice said after the game, look, we're not going to, throw up our arms here and panic. And I kind of agree. I mean, you had a rough period. For the most part, the game has been solid, but I think maybe start being, okay, we're on a 3-game winless streak here, and we're going to face a Columbus team tomorrow night that just put up 7 on the Sabres. Now, I think there were some empty netters there, but still, I mean, the Jets got to figure out a way to get the puck at the end and the special teams going as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say it just feels like it's going to happen, but, it didn't. And last night, I mean, I think your example of comparing it to the St. Louis game was an accurate one. And, again, it's always a bit of a different feeling when you're in the building. And it certainly was for those games, wasn't last night. But, you get through that first period playing the way the Winnipeg Jets did with just the 1-goal lead, courtesy of the fourth line. You think you're in a pretty good situation, to win the hockey game. And by the way, Connor Hellebuck made some crazy saves last night as well. I mean, for all the chances that the Winnipeg Jets were generating, even when the shots weren't coming fast and furious at Hellebuck, there were a few pretty grade A chances that he made great saves on. And you look at the save percentage at the end of the game, and it has to be frustrating from a coaching standpoint and certainly a fan standpoint to sort of waste performances like that. From your goaltender. So Hellebuck, I thought, was great last night. Just did want to add that in. But I mean, now they move on, and this Columbus game is going to be really interesting. Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be fired up to go back and play against his old team. Unfortunately, of course, Patrick Laine won't be in the lineup, and everyone giving out their sympathies. We talked about it yesterday with the passing of Patrick's father over the course of the weekend. And then an afternoon game against the Minnesota Wild, and then Saturday night against the Calgary Flames. You look at the opportunities of the teams that they played, with the home games that they've had, and the homestand overall was very, very good. Certainly finishing with that great win against Edmonton last week, but, leaving a point on the table in a game they probably could have easily won against the Oilers, and then the regulation loss to Vancouver. heading into last night against Pittsburgh. This is the first time since the beginning of the season they've lost a couple in regulation in a row, and now another 3 games in 4 nights, all over the map, Reem. I guess this is the road trip with 3 different time zones. I know we banned that conversation, but a lot of travel right now. You'd have to assume Eric Comrie's going to get in, and they're playing against some teams. Certainly Columbus, I think, has overachieved with what many people thought they'd do this year. The Minnesota Wild are right there with the Jets at the top of the division, and that should be a great game considering how wild the first matchup between these teams were this season. And then the Calgary Flames, and we'll probably focus more on Calgary on Friday's show because of the afternoon nature of that Minnesota game. But Calgary's been one of the great stories in the league without a major change in personnel. Giordano out, Blake Coleman in for the most part. Calgary's playing a much different way this year. Mangiapane's on fire. Johnny Gaudreau's having a great season. They're getting so much more out of those same players under Daryl Sutter, and that's going to be an interesting way to finish up a very busy week for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, maybe feeling it a little bit more, as far as desperation to get back in the win column after playing pretty well overall, with the exception of the second half of last night's game, but not getting the results over the past week in the standings.
Yeah, I see some nervous people in our chat right now looking forward to the week. I'm not sure what the Jets' historic record is in afternoon games, but I'm getting the feeling that I don't know. I'd have to look that up, but I think you have that game of the back-to-back against Calgary after a road trip where we've changed a lot of time zones. Has you gone, Central, East, Central, Mountain? I think that Calgary game. I don't know if I can bet on it now, but the Calgary's playing really well. We talked about their goaltending yesterday. Markstrom with the 5 shutouts. Vladar's got a couple too. They've done very well, and I think after this week road trip, on a back-to-back, I think that's going to be a rough one. And we'll see what Minnesota was an emotional matchup before. Can the Jets rebound? And I remember after that game, I did have the panic button up. Where is it? Up here.
Yeah.
Up here, but they seem to have rebounded. So I think tomorrow you got to get that game in Columbus. As you said, no Line. He's injured as well. I'm dealing with the passing of his father, which the hockey world sends their condolences. But Jack Roslovic, a guy who's also playing against his former team, I don't know if you saw what he did yesterday. I think Mike McIntyre was ready to write about how he hasn't scored all season. And there he was yesterday scoring a couple, 7-goal game for the Blue Jackets, as I mentioned. There he was, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. And I think we saw those games here from Roslovic when he's in Winnipeg.
Yeah, followed by 18 goals of having his face on the side of a milk carton.
Yeah, so he would have, I remember he had that huge game against Anaheim, and then he's like, okay, give this guy some power play time, let's go. And I think he would go goalless for a while. So we'll see what happens to Jack. But, he's a Jets draft pick, and it'll be interesting. The former team draftees, him and Dubois, going head-to-head tomorrow.
Well, and you know what? It's been a real disappointing season so far for Roslovic in that, you coming into a situation where there's such a gap of, talented centermen right now. He's been relegated to the 4th line for the better part of the last number of weeks. Now, maybe his little outburst last night with a couple goals will get him into a better spot. Certainly Roslovic, I'm sure, will be, much like Pierre-Luc Dubois, fired up for the game tomorrow and the opportunity to play against his old team. But any positive news right now for Jack Roslovic's good, because it really has been a struggle, despite the fact that the Columbus Blue Jackets, I know many people thought that they'd be like in the Coyotes neighborhood, have been far from it this year. And, working their asses off each and every game. That's sort of something that we certainly knew was coming from, Blue Jacket teams over the years, even with John Tortorella gone right now. And they've been winning games without Line as well, which has been interesting. He had a pretty good start, but was out 4 to 6 weeks with that oblique injury, so still not able to contribute right now. So we'll certainly talk more about that. I know lots of the Winnipeg media are out there. I know Mike McIntyre is already there with the Winnipeg Free Press. Ken was going on some sort of milk run today. I think he said last night on the program he's going to Grand Forks, and then he's heading to Columbus, and he's going to go to a Viking game. We'll find out. Ken will be on the program on Thursday, so we'll get an update on all of his travels. And I know Rennie's heading out there as well. So very interesting game. Not your normal midweek game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, with the trade that happened last year between these two hockey clubs. So we'll spend more time on the Jets coming up a little later on with Murat. We are expecting Adam Bighill to join us in just a few minutes. Before we do that, do want to thank our friends at Vita Health for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Vita Health Fresh Market, stocked with Winnipeg's best selection of local, organic, and natural groceries, supplements, and beauty products, all at great prices with an incredibly knowledgeable staff trained on these products to help you get the right thing for you. Of course, November's Men's Health Month. Vita Health carries products to support prostate, energy, libido, stress management, and more. Probably some stress management needed after the game last night for many Winnipeg Jet fans. Great local company that's been in business for 85 years, empowering people to lead healthy lives since 1936 here in Winnipeg. 7 locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. Of course, I mentioned the water that, or I guess I was talking about to Dusty on the lock shop for it. Sometimes there's lots going on at an event like this. Hydration, very important. Nice case from the Culligan folks popping by on the doorstep of the hotel. Thank you very much, Chris Abbott. Of course, Culligan are the go-to people for all things water. Family-owned for 65 years in Winnipeg, hydrating people's families and homes, offices, and so much more. They've got it all. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, not to mention city-wide water delivery services and commercial and industrial water products and solutions for your business as well. Find out more on all the great products that Culligan Man has for you. DrinkCulligan.com or pop by and see him at 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180. Remis just got a delivery from the Culligan folks yesterday as well. And of course, our friends at Royal Sports, I believe tomorrow is the day, the debut of the new Team Canada Olympic hockey jerseys. We'll do a little something on that. And of course, Royal Sports will be your headquarters for Olympic gear. The amount of Canada soccer gear that's been moving out the front door at Royal Sports has been something else. Not to mention Bomber gear getting ready for the 5th of December, as well as lots of action from the Winnipeg Jets section with thousands upon thousands of items for the Jets fan in your family. Holidays around the corner. You can take care of all of your shopping with one trip to Royal Sports. Of course, snowboard gear as well. Had the big sale a few weeks ago. Still tons in stock, and they are the hockey superstore. 35 years in town as the hockey experts over at Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. All right, we're hoping for Adam Bighill to join the program in a few minutes. And Remo, while we wait for the Bombers' outstanding defensive player for 2021, we got to quickly talk about the big news. Well, I guess it does involve the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, because former Blue Bomber Chris Streveler was cut yesterday by the Arizona Cardinals on waivers right now. But the least surprising development was that the second the news about Streveler being released from the Cardinals came out, 99% of Bomber fans went to social media and started throwing up the come on down to Winnipeg gif and much more, hoping that there might be a reunion in the future for the incredibly popular quarterback from the 2019 championship team.
Yeah, I was at the Jets game, so I wasn't really on social media, but I started getting text messages. Can the Bombers sign Streveler? And I got a bunch of, search on Twitter. Darren's looking into it. Jeff, Bob Irving, everyone's tweeting about, okay, well, if Streveler, so now that he's been cut, he has to clear waivers and then he can sign with any team. But would he sign with the Bombers? I think first of all, I think we would all love to see that. Why not, get the band back together, reunite? We know this team, could use a backup quarterback. I mean, what would happen if he came in? Would they start running plays with him, or would he be a clipboard holder? But I think for Streveler, you probably want to exhaust your NFL options first, I would think.
Yeah, I can tell you this. The Bombers would love to have him back. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Sean McGuire obviously nicked up, didn't even play in that last game as the backup, and when he did play the week before, did not look pretty with the 4 interceptions. So yes, from the Winnipeg Football Club standpoint, the door is wide open for Chris Streveler, but I think it's important for people to understand that, there were more teams than just the Arizona Cardinals that were interested in Streveler. I mean, this is the guy that pretty much hasn't taken a hit in the last couple of years. Of course, he did play in that playoff game this year, but really hasn't been in the game. So, if there was another NFL team that maybe had interest in him before that, would put him onto the roster, he would obviously do that right now. But, he has very fond memories of Winnipeg. He's got very close ties with the organization, even to this day. And you never know the way it'll work out. But I think before everyone gets too excited about the potential of Chris Streveler coming back to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, realize that, he and his agent will do everything they can to see if he can continue his NFL dream. And the timing might not be right to, quickly come back. Because honestly, if you're going to be with the Blue Bombers, you're talking about making some sort of a decision this week to come back. And that's not a lot of time to exhaust all the NFL opportunities, considering he officially hasn't even cleared waivers yet and been on the market, Reem.
Yeah, but what if he just didn't sign with the Bombers, and if the Bombers were to win the Grey Cup, just came to the parade with a fur coat? What if he doesn't even have to play? I think people just want him at the parade, right? Isn't that what this is about? Like, don't even just sign him to a one-day, just pay him, a cameo fee, come out to the parade, even though I guess he's not on the team anymore. Don't want to take anything away from the guys on the team. But I think, is that what this is really about, Huss? I mean, the Bombers, their first place team, they don't actually, I don't want to say they don't need him. I mean, you'd like to have him on the team, but they could win if he's not there. But I think he had such an MVP performance at the parade. It would just be nice to have that back. But I do think in all seriousness, I think he'll exhaust his NFL opportunities. We were all watching him in Arizona. We wanted him to succeed. And it seemed like when he was in the game, they weren't, it's like they hadn't watched tape of him at the CFL. They were asking him to throw whenever he was in. And I was kind of always surprised. We thought they'd use him like a Taysom Hill type player where, he's running, you got the option. But they want him to be like a pocket passer. And we all saw him here. I don't think that's
insane.
Using his skill set appropriately. So that was, and when, Kyle Murray's been down and Colt McCoy, is the backup, like, you think they would throw him in, for a couple runs here and there, but they were never used him this year, and they used him last year. And when they did, it was just in such a puzzling fashion. I know we had all tuned in, so maybe someone will pick him up and use him the way we've seen him before.
Yeah, it's really puzzling the way he was used and wasn't used. I mean, I had said back when he was with the Bombers that, a unique offensive mind might be able to take Streveler into the National Football League and do some things that you don't see from normal quarterbacks right now in the NFL. And, Cliff Kingsbury certainly fit that bill. So it was exciting, I think, certainly from Streveler's perspective, and people that wanted to see Streveler get a real opportunity to show what he can do in the National Football League, that he was going to a situation like that. But you're exactly right. I mean, there was never any unique plays designed to get the most out of Chris Streveler. And hey, when you got Kyler Murray, he was a number 1 overall pick. I mean, I'm not saying that was their top priority, but to your point, Reem, I mean, now with Murray out for a couple weeks, if there ever was a time that they would go and utilize that, that would be the time. But I think they realized that his limitations throwing the football, are a major factor. And unless you're putting, an exclusively, running package in, maybe with James Conner and Streveler in, there's running sort of wildcat or option type plays, at a certain point you were going to have to lean on his arm. And, unfortunately, it just, even in the Canadian Football League, that was an issue. It's a big reason why Zach Collaros is here right now. Of course, Streveler was also injured in 2019. But will he get the opportunity? I really don't know. But I'm just not sure that he can exhaust those opportunities and know that there's nothing there in time to come back and rejoin the team for the playoffs. All that being said, though, it might be the most popular late season signing in Bomber history if somehow it happened. And it wouldn't just be the fans. I know there's a lot of people in that front office that would be pretty darn happy to have Chris Streveler back. And I think Mike O'Shea's probably at that top of that list if you consider what, how much they leaned on him in 2019 and what he showed he was capable of.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because 3 Down Nation's been following him for the last couple weeks because he did get some game action there, and we got tagged in one of the tweets. And I see people tweeting at us, why is there so much hype about this guy? I'm like, well, they obviously weren't in Winnipeg last CFL season. I mean, for forever, he'll be a Winnipeg legend, helping bring the Grey Cup here after the drought for his performance, not only on the field, but also, as I mentioned, on the parade with the fur coat. I mean, people were coming dressed in fur coats to the Bombers opener. So the guys will be, beloved here among Bomber fans. I want to say forever, but probably for a long time, for sure. So we'll wait and see. I mean, they did bring it back. Winston Rose, Shaq Cooper was a late signing, which we're talking about here. So I mean, we'll wait and see. He was cut, and maybe there's a team where he can hop on and be like a third string quarterback, but does do a little short yardage or comes in for some gadget run plays. But I'm not sure. So they signed Trace McSorley off the Ravens practice squad.
Yeah, the minute that happened, it was it did not look good for the Bombers. I know there's a lot of people in chat talking about what Streveler brings to the table as a quarterback. I mean, the guy's a unicorn. Is he a great passer of the football? No, I would not say he's great. Is he, an incredible athlete and one of the toughest guys to tackle when it comes to the running game? Absolutely. And the energy that he brings to a team as well. Well documented in the city of Winnipeg. Now, I know people love the guy for the parade and the fur coat and the character that he is, but let's not forget that Bomber offense was set up around an incredibly strong running game. I mean, it was before anyone knew that Zach Collaros was even going to be in town and able to contribute to the wins with the way that it went down in 2020 in 2019. You had Andrew Harris, you had Chris Streveler, and Nick Dembski and some of those other plays. I mean, he was a human battering ram. And one of the other things, if you talk to people around the football team, I mean, the way he came back from that high ankle sprain, was able to play in the playoffs. Medically speaking, one of the most incredible healing, well, maybe even lack of healing, the ability to play through pain that people have seen in a long, long time. I mean, he should have been out for the season and was able to come back and make some big, big plays in the Grey Cup. And of course, he did throw that dime to Andrew Harris for a touchdown that I think caught everybody off guard in the big game back in 2019 as well. So we can always talk about Streveler. Bomber fans are here for it. They'll always have time to talk about Streveler and what he brings to the table and how much we would love to have him back in this club. And especially with the situation behind Zach Collaros right now, I think it would be great for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it would immediately make them a better football team. Bottom line is, though, Reem, pretty tough to blame a guy for wanting to exhaust his NFL options after being in the NFL for the last couple seasons. So I don't think a quick decision, just automatically come back to Winnipeg, would be happening, and that's unfortunate. But I'll tell you what, if after a couple days he decides maybe that is what he should do, I'm pretty damn sure the Winnipeg Blue Bombers would welcome him with open arms, and I 100% know that the fan base of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers would.
Yeah, of course. I agree with you. I sent you a message there. I texted Darren, and so we'll wait and see about Bighill coming up. But and I think if you're Streveler, you probably want to just look at all your NFL options. But we can dream here, can't we? We can dream about him possibly coming back to the Bombers. I think that's what this is about.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments here. I mean, Strev's not an NFL QB, probably not. Strev's returning to Bombers like Huss and Remis going to Funny 1290. Absolutely not. What are you talking about? Streveler got a great opportunity to go to the best. It would be like if the station was still a sports station and we got hired by, I don't know, ESPN in the States for 2 years. They didn't give us much opportunity and then blew us out, and we came right back to the old station, which was still happening. Very, very different situation on that. So, the Gitch asking about Strev running for more TDs than McGuire this season. I'm not sure if he did. Don't have the numbers in front of me, but he was an incredible, and BA split. QB job is to pass, not a great passer. Well, it's a job to pass if you're calling passing plays. But there's also a lot of running plays in pro football. And if you have a quarterback like Chris Streveler there, it gives you so many other opportunities to move the football, especially when it's the toughest time to pass all year, and that's when it's -12, -15 in the middle of the Canadian Football League playoffs. So, again, don't want to spend too much time on it, although it's a topic everybody wants to talk about. We'll probably get some clarity in the next few days as to what Chris Streveler's next move is, but the ball certainly is in his court. I think this caught him by surprise, was not expecting it, and, now has some pretty big decisions after, seeing what else is out there for him. But, the city of Winnipeg and the Blue Bombers, I think, will always be there for Chris Streveler. And tell you what, it would be pretty special. I know Nick Kowalski was tweeting out. Can you imagine Strev out there running over Rough Riders in -20 on the 5th of December in the Western Final? I think a lot of people would certainly love to do that. But with or without Streveler, the Bombers will be there. They'll be ready for the winner of the Calgary-Saskatchewan game coming up this weekend. Montreal and the Hamilton Tiger Cats playing for the opportunity to head to BMO Field to take on the Toronto Argonauts. Well, we wait to see what's going on with Adam Bighill. Hopefully he will join us. I can guarantee you that Murat is going to join us a little more for finding out what's up with the Winnipeg Jets and this last little bump in the road, shall you say, with a couple back-to-back regulation losses. Do want to thank our friends at Manitoba Battery, who in turn are thanking frontline and healthcare workers for their support and work during the COVID pandemic. For the month of November, if you need a battery, frontline and healthcare workers, they'll take care of the taxes for you already with the lowest prices in town on automotive batteries. Thanking them for helping us get through the challenges of COVID. And of course, the snow has fallen. Might be getting some more soon, and that's music to the ears of everybody with sleds in southern Manitoba. Manitoba Battery, the go-to place for all batteries, not just automotive, including batteries for pretty much whatever type of sled you have. Most sled batteries can be found in the $65 to $75 range over at Manitoba Battery. You can find out more at manitobabattery.com or give Donnie and the guys a call, 204-783-8787. You can find them over on Logan Avenue. And, speaking of celebrations, Little Brown Jug, our friends, just about ready to celebrate 5 years in business. Pop down and see him at the amazing tap room on William Avenue. You can pick up all the great Little Brown Jug products, including the celebratory beer brewed for Little Brown Jug's 5th anniversary, a champagne-like extra dry IPA with flavors of citrus and stone fruit. It is the 5-year anniversary Brut IPA available right now, and you can also get your hands on the beautiful 5-year tulip glasses with a commemorative gold 5-year logo on one side, a gold regular Little Brown Jug logo on the other, and a gold rim. I saw Dallas, one of our regulars, tweeting out, was enjoying a couple on the weekend and had the tulip glass. You'll see those all around Winnipeg if you're ever ordering at a restaurant. A definitely nice touch as well. And they've got some amazing gift boxes getting ready for the holidays. You can select one of the curated gift boxes or create your own by adding some merch and beer, and they'll put it together for you and deliver it citywide. New toques as well. It's all there online at littlebrownjug.ca, or pop by and see them at William Avenue. Of course, we've got to give a shout out to our friends at Boston Pizza as well. Let's get to the Boston Pizza scoreboard for tonight in the National Hockey League. And a very light night, to be honest. A great night to go check out some curling on TSN, actually. 3 games in the National Hockey League. You got the Philadelphia Flyers taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Edmonton Oilers in Dallas to take on the Stars, and the Calgary Flames, who the Jets will be seeing on Saturday night, hosting the Chicago Blackhawks. Lots going on, though. Women's draw tonight at the Olympic trials. We'll talk a little bit later on. Hoping to have Ted Wyman join us probably around 2:30 for those of you watching on the live stream for the upcoming for the live stream for tonight's draw from the curling. So not sure what's up with Adam Bighill. We hope to have him on the program. I can tell you that we will have Murat join us a little bit later on. Just a couple more notes. I think I did mention this at the top. We're about over 27,000 seats for the game on December 5th. Bob Irving's going to be celebrated before the game, which is certainly, I mean, you have to do something like that for the end of an era. And still not hearing any good news about a potential tweak to allow Bob to call the Grey Cup game. But, I have a feeling maybe those things are working behind the scenes right now. I know nobody in the Winnipeg organization would want to do anything assuming that the Bombers are playing in the game. But considering TSN doesn't have a sports station and has no presence in Winnipeg anymore, it would be criminal to, because of a national deal, not have Bob call the game coming up on the 5th of December. All right, we are going to talk Bombers right now with one of the beasts of the dark side. Yes, that Bomber defense that has been terrorizing the rest of the league. They have a well-earned week off, getting ready for the winners of Calgary and Saskatchewan on the weekend. And then December 5th, 3 p.m., IG Field, over 27,000 tickets sold. Make sure you count yourself in for what's going to be a real special day. And one of the guys will be focusing on one of the leaders of the Blue Bomber defense, all-star linebacker Adam Bighill, joins us now on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Adam, what's going on? Great to have you on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
How are you feeling right now at the end of the regular season? You've earned the week off. We knew this was coming for about the last month. You kind of got to the finish line of the regular season, and now the real work begins, huh?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, everything we want is in front of us. Step one is complete. Having this week to kind of rest and rejuvenate while a couple other teams beat each other up, that's definitely a ball in our court. It's not like we're sitting around either. We're going to be practicing and staying sharp too. So all in all, feeling really good coming up for December 5th.
Yeah. How would you, like this season for you personally, obviously went great. By the way, first off, congratulations on the nominee as the Bombers Defensive Player of the Year. I can tell you, someone that's followed this team for a very, very long time, I don't think we've ever been in a situation where there were so many players that played so well on that side of the football that they, could have earned the nod. But you were, and that speaks to what a special honor that it is, to be honest with you, because of the competition amongst your teammates on that defensive unit.
Yeah, I mean, you said it as well as you can. I mean, this year being nominated, it means the most in all the years I've been nominated by my team in my career. This one means the most for sure. Like you said, so many great defensive efforts and great defensive players on our team, and multiple guys that are defensive players of the year in our locker room. So, it's a big deal.
What I gotta ask, what was this last month like for you? Because, you come out, you start the season with the goal to win the West and to have that home playoff game. And it was a short season. It speaks to just how good this team was this was essentially wrapped up a month ago. I mean, you want to play, you want to win, but you also, realize the real goal was to run it back and win the Grey Cup again. Well, what was it like getting through these last few games compared to, the incredible level that you guys were at for the majority of the season that earned you the opportunity to play some, not meaningless to you, but, when it comes to the standings, everything was already determined.
Well, I think it's probably tougher on the organization and the players. I mean, myself, doesn't matter what a game means. I like to compete, and I'm going to go out there and do the same thing either way. So, on the organizational standpoint, you can understand some of the stress of keeping guys fresh, getting some young guys some valuable opportunities to get reps and looks, and take some risk off the table. Some guys, not playing as many snaps, so that kind of thing. So it can be a challenge organizationally, but I mean, if you ask any player in our locker room, if they wanted to play and play their best, they'd say yes.
Well, so those last couple games, you went in, obviously you didn't have the entire complement. There probably was some different guys in the lineup, let's just say, than if it was a playoff game. And yet, you're still in there. Obviously, the end of the game on the weekend, 54 minutes of shutout football sort of turned at the end right now. But, when you're finishing that game and you're getting on the plane, I imagine everyone's thoughts simply on the upcoming week and preparing for the winner of the West semifinal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are learning moments for sure, and definitely some plays that we want back that didn't need to have happen the way they did. Credit them, but we also feel like we gave them some things with missed assignments that we didn't need to. So, with that being said, like I said, it's a learning moment, but it's everyone's going to be ready to go on December 5th, and we're going to be full roster, full guys, everything, ready to unleash hell. So, I mean, um, we've been waiting for this moment for a while, like you said, over a month, and we've been working hard for it.
This is probably maybe a question that I should be asking after the 12th of December, but just talking about the regular season before we get to the playoffs. You've been on a lot of good defenses before. You've been on championship teams. You were on that 2019 team. When you look back at what you and your group were able to accomplish over the course of this 14-game season, where does this rank up amongst the best units that you've been on?
Well, I don't know the stats that we have for yards per game and points per game and all the different things that we might have, that are there. I just haven't looked at it. But judging by feel and kind of just what I've heard, I would put this up with the best defense I've ever been on. Was one of the things that we've done so far to this point. And with that being said, I mean, it's just credit to our whole group, guys coming in working super hard every single day, not being content. Obviously, the coaches for putting us in great position and coaching our schemes very well. So it's been a lot of fun. I tell you that. Every time we go on the field, it's really, one of the things we say, hey, it's time to go have fun. This is, it's not a bad thing to go out on the field. So we're looking for every opportunity we can get out there.
Well, that next opportunity is going to be on the 5th of December. What's this week like for you guys? I mean, how do you practice? Is it just some more rest for a little while? I mean, what's the schedule for the club, and how does the bye week work in the playoffs, knowing what's to come down the road?
Yeah, so I mean, early on here we get a few days of rest for guys, which is 2 to 3 days of rest. It sounds like not that much, but you think about we get 1 day off a week roughly every single week, and usually that day off guys are going in and working out and training and doing stuff anyway. So 3 days off to kind of rest, rejuvenate, and then we're going to be back in practicing and just sharpening our tools, and they won't be full on practices that we be doing for a prep week, but they're going to be practices where we can work on certain situations and special areas that we want to focus on and dive into a little bit tighter, and making sure we can execute in those situations. So it's a good time to focus on those kinds of things and like I said, sharpen our tools.
Adam Bighill of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the team's nominee for Defensive Player of the Year in the Canadian Football League, our guest here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Adam, I think back to 2019, and everyone knew that this was a good football team, but there were some really unique challenges. There was the entire story about the quarterback situation where Zach Collaros had only played, just the final game of the regular season, and then you had to go in and do it on the road. But you got it done, and you got it done again, and then won the big game and became champions. How much? Many of those same players are still part of this club. How much can that experience, knowing what it took to win and having done it as a group, help you guys to try to get these final 2 wins and repeat the job?
Well, it's big, but I would say that that's been big all year long from the beginning of training camp. That leadership, that mentorship, that standard of excellence in which we want to play at and which we demand from each other. That's been said a while ago, and now things have been in motion, and now it's time to, once again reiterate what it takes now that we're in this different part of the season, and we've already started doing that, and just a little bit more work upon what we've already been doing, and guys have already been putting in lots of extra work, and it makes me proud. Seeing these guys work and make me feel very confident of where we're going. But like I said, it's been a process, been underway, and getting just start now, and we're ready to kind of take advantage of this moment that we've created for ourselves.
Taking the opportunity during a couple days of rest before we get into a playoff week, just to look back at the regular season. I think back to our conversations on this program and many others that I were on about the Bombers going into this season. We knew that there was a lot of guys that, were big parts of that championship team that were coming back. And I guess you never know how things are going to look after an unprecedented year off. But, having you back in the year that Willie Jefferson had and Jackson Jeffcoat and BA at safety, the one question we had were the DBs, and I think there was like 30 DBs that were in camp back in training camp. Nichols and Alford, though, from a guy that, was somewhat of a quarterback of that defense, I mean, how important have those young men been to the success so far? And when did you know that you guys had found a couple real good ones this season?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, those were the biggest question marks, is replacing a few of those DB spots. And, it's something we were looking at and talking about a lot going into through training camp. And those guys, Nichols and Alfred, they've been amazing. And, they've been some of the best rookies I've seen coming fresh into the CFL and play this different style of game on the defensive side of the ball. And their attention to detail, their humbleness, a commitment to continuing to work and learn and listen. You see them getting better every single day. And they were the ones at camp that at the beginning of camp, you didn't know how anyone was going to shake out, but they were the ones that learned the quickest and put forth, the most, reps on the field that demonstrated that they could pick this game up. And they've been lights out, and it's been really, really fun to watch. And it's been, really special because, like I said, those are tough positions to play in the boundary, and they're making it look relatively easy. And so with that being said, a lot of credit to, obviously our coaching staff and Jordan Younger, our DB's coach, who works very, very hard to prepare our guys and really coaches in a very sound, fundamental way that, there's no gray area. There's rules that we learn how to play by and expectations and, hold people accountable. So I think he's done a great job, and he's a great reason why on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the passing game, why we've limited teams so well.
What was it, considering how great the season that those guys had, it seems like the rich getting richer with Winston Rose coming back to the club. What was it like when your former teammate from the 2019 championship team walked in the dressing room a few weeks ago?
Yeah, it was exciting. Because Winston, first and foremost, is a great teammate and obviously a great football player. So knowing we were getting him back was pretty exciting. And, we know we can definitely add to our club and what we can do on the field. And so, like you said, the rich get richer, and, we got places to go.
Speaking of, teammates returning, half the team texting your old pal Chris Streveler, seeing if he wants to run it back with the boys in the playoffs.
We'll see what happens. I obviously wish him the best with his NFL opportunities, and something shakes through for him. I do think it's important for him to see out his NFL opportunities while they're there, and not to rush back too soon. Obviously, we'd love to have him. He'd be a big part of winning another cup if he were to come. But, you got to let the chips fall where they may, and then let him do what's best for him. And so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you would know that. You've spent a lot of time in the National Football League. When something like this happens, I think a player would obviously be blindsided. I guess at that point, you sort of let the dust settle a little bit. And then the agent really has a lot of work to do to see what else is out there. The timing of this, not great, though, because, really, if you want to get back, you pretty much need to do it now. And for a young man that has just spent 2 years in the National Football League, obviously, you're trying to exhaust all of your options to see if you can stay playing in the 4-down game.
Yeah. Patience is going to be a virtue. The NFL teams, they work differently. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason why they do things. At least to you, nothing kind of makes sense at times. So, and then really your opportunity and timing, you're one injury away in a team across the NFL that, sparks, a hunt for a new quarterback, and that could be Streveler. So obviously he's a great talented player, has a lot of ability. I know he can help football club down there. So I really expect him to find a home.
Yeah, well, that being said, if he ever showed back up in Winnipeg, whether it was on the Bombers or just here for it, he'd be welcomed back by the city, certainly the fan base, and I imagine the individuals in that Bomber locker room. Adam Bighill's with us. December 5th is the West Final. Tickets are on sale right now. So a couple days off. I think of how busy you are off the field, the way you play, how much you work out. It must be weird to have these off days. Like, what's a rest day like for Adam Bighill? How much resting actually goes on?
Yeah, I know it's a good question. I mean, for me, I still got to get a few things done in the day with, some stretching and movement, whether it's a workout or some sort of running and so forth. So I definitely stay loose and stay active. But, it changes. I'm able to, take kids to school, make some breakfast for them and then kind of hang out throughout the day. And, I'm still working on the side on the computer and stuff, doing the stuff on the financial gig as well. So, it just allows me a little more flexibility to be around the kids during the day and, multitask.
Well, you earned a few extra days off, you and the rest of your teammates. Enjoy it. I imagine it'll be a spirited week of practice, and I know it will be a spirited game on the 5th. I mean, just seeing Winnipeg Chester saying ticket sales looking great. Lower bowl almost sold out. Only a few sections in the upper bowl. Hoping to fill that building. I mean, have you spent much time thinking about December 5th, and how exciting is it to think about that home playoff game and one win in front of your home fans to get to Hamilton and try and bring back a second Grey Cup to Winnipeg?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about it because, it's a goal from day one to get the first round bye and play in front of our home fans. And it's such a big deal because our fans are so great and we have such an advantage playing at home. We make it tough on any opponent coming in. So obviously feel really, really good about that. Obviously feel really good about our squad and where we're going and the guys we have and ability we have to make plays. So, this, like I said, is just part of the process, the next step that we got to take. And, it's kind of let it all go, kind of let loose and have fun and put it all on the line because there ain't no going back.
Hey, Adam, before we go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you quickly about the legendary voice of the Bombers, Bob Irving. Final game will be the West Final at IG Field. I mean, you've been around this team for a long time. I mean, not as long as Bob, but he really is a part of this community, and he is synonymous with Blue Bomber football. Just your thoughts on the incredible career of Bob and what it's been like as a player to deal with him on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, Bob he's an icon. He's a legend here in Blue Bomber history. I talked to season ticket holders who had their tickets for 30, 40 odd years. And, to them, that's how they started getting affiliated with the Bombers and listening on the radio and listening at home after the drive home, after they're at the game, the kind of radio show they put together post game. People can't say enough about that and really how cemented that is into their memory of Bomber football. So many good things to say about Bob. He's been great to work with. He's such a diehard for the CFL and obviously for the Bombers. You love him for that, and it is hard work and what he puts into it. He really bleeds for the CFL, and always appreciate him and wish him the best. So, really appreciate you, Bob.
Well, I think everyone does echoes those, and I think we all hope that final call on the 5th of December in the West Final will be Bob Irving saying on CJOB, the Bombers are going back to the Grey Cup. Adam, have a great rest week. Cannot wait to see that game, and hopefully then we'll be talking about a trip to Hamilton for you and the teammates, and who knows what comes after that. You be well. Congratulations on an amazing regular season, and good luck on December 5th.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Good stuff. There it is. Adam Bighill of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers joining us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Great to have Adam on. What a season that he had. I know we talked with Darren Bombing in Hamilton last week about this, but the decision for people that had to vote, I can't imagine how tough it was for Mike O'Shea, who does have a vote as well on that for the year-end award winners. I mean, Willie Jefferson was a beast. Jackson Jeffcoat had an incredible season. Brandon Alexander was amazing. Alford was solid. It just speaks to, the honor and how good Adam Bighill was that he was able to win that award with such incredible competition around the Winnipeg Blue Bombers team. All right, Murat, Tesh, more Jets talk coming up in just a few minutes. Do want to shout out our good friends over at Not Auto Corp for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Winter's here. You might be thinking, man, I should have gotten on a search for a new car a little earlier, before you do anything, give the folks at Knott a call. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Knott team? You can check them out in person over at Waverly and McGillivray. And while you're there, check out the new Winnipeg Car Lab, doing it all, striping, tinting, rims, and custom wraps as well with the print shop at the lab. It's all there at Knott Auto Corp, Waverly and McGillivray, or check them out online at knott.ca. You know, I've got to send this message while we get ready to talk to while we get ready to talk to Murat. Our friends at the Nick and Nicky DQ group, of course, Nick and Nicky with 4 locations in Winnipeg, the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's, now open year-round, available on Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes. Nick sent a text yesterday to me after the show that he was at a consultation to get knee surgery from one of the top surgeons around. Meeting Dr. Forster for the first time, he says, asked what he does. I tell him I own a few DQs. He says, wait, are you Nick from the Nick and Nicky DQ group? He said, yes. He then said he's super pumped to meet me because he's a big fan of your show. Funny stuff. Even the big surgeons in the city love the boys. That one made my day, Nick. Shout out to Dr. Forster and the gang over at Legacy Sports Management. Hopefully the wheel gets taken care of quickly and you'll be back at it doing whatever you need to do. But of course, Nick and Nicky, great sponsors of ours. And if you do need a cake for an event, you can hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. Get it custom made and ready for pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQ locations. And of course, speaking of Adam Bighill and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Canadian Club is the official sponsor of the Bombers and the official whiskey of the Blue and Gold, available at all IG Field events. I have a feeling there'll be quite a bit of CC in the stands, keeping people warm on the 5th of December. If you haven't already, you can pick up your own stock at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And don't forget, still a very precious few bottles of the special Canadian Club Chronicles 44-year-old whiskey that was released a couple weeks ago. There was just under 70 bottles for the entire province of Manitoba. May have to go on the website to see where they're still available, but if you do have a rye connoisseur in the family, it might be an incredible gift heading into the holidays. And of course, don't forget, Friday at an early time, I believe tentatively 11 a.m. for the show, which would mean the Canadian Club Marble Race happening over the lunch hour in and around 12:30, 12:45, because of course the Winnipeg Jets are taking on the Minnesota Wild in an afternoon game before then heading to Calgary on Saturday to take on the Calgary Flames. So we will do an earlier show on Friday, probably focus less on Friday's game and more on the weekend, the CFL playoffs, and the Jets and the Calgary Flames. But before we get to Minnesota, before we get to Calgary, there's a game tomorrow in Columbus, not to mention an autopsy of a disappointing loss at home to get to. And no one better to do that with than our good friend Murat of The Athletic, who joins us now. Murat, what's up? How are you, my friend?
I'm doing quite well. Good to see you. How you doing?
Doing well. Managed to somehow plug everything right and pull this off on location. So we're quite excited about what this means for our ability to do shows on the road and even in and around the city going forward. But so far, so good. It's been a great atmosphere out in Saskatchewan for some really high-level curling of so many Canadians trying to become the Canada's representative, and lots of great Manitobans. But the curling's been great. Weird game last night, I have to say. I was posted up at a bar, so I wasn't able to hear what was going on in the game, but obviously following it and watched that first period, and it looked a lot like the way the Jets have been playing for the most part over the last little while. I mean, controlling the play, more scoring chances, more shots on goal, a comfortable lead at 1 point, 20-9 into the second period. And then the game just sort of did a 180. I mean, just your thoughts on the game and how different the first half was to the second half last night.
Yeah, the first half was all fun. Everything that happened was entertaining in some way. I mean, you had Riley Nash and Dominic Toninato, fourth line members, on a 2-on-1 rush. You have Toninato score the goal, a spinning wrist shot. You had some interesting rush plays as well, where there's this one with Jansen Harkins where he had a chance to feed Evgeny Svechnikov driving the net. And Harkins, instead of driving the center lane, kind of floats to the wall. And every beat that goes by, I'm thinking, he's not going to be able to make this pass. He's not going to be able to make the pass. And just inside the blue line along the boards, he feathers this perfect saucer pass to Svechnikov to get onto on the doorstep. And I'm like, wow, that's a fun play. Is this how this game's going to go? Is it going to be all skill and outside play? And is Winnipeg going to be able to have success with that? Because it looked like fun. And I think that's honestly part of what got away from them as the game went on. The calls should be talked about. I mean, the phantom high sticking calls on Dubois and Kopp, I didn't like either one of those. I think Dubois made the most slight contact ever with helmet. And then Kopp got penalized for a penguin on penguin high stick. After that, the penalty runs into the goal against. And from that moment, the game's not the same. For me, it was as if Winnipeg, instead of retreating to its best version of itself in an attempt to take over the game, they kind of retreated to that outside play, that seam play, that not quite getting to the middle of the ice play that had kind of worked in the first period, but wasn't the recipe to come back, and they got pushed around in the third.
Now, there's a couple things that I want to mention. We'll get to special teams in a sec. Did you sense that there was some frustration with the team? Because as I said, I think over the last little while, I mean, really coming out of that LA game, I mean, they certainly played very well and got the results on Tuesday against Edmonton. I thought they were easily as good as they were in the Thursday game. That was an epic game, 0-0. Obviously goes to 1-1. They only get the single point. And then a game in Vancouver where I think, at 5-on-5, they were clearly the better team, but were sort of sunk by the penalty kill. But the bottom line is a lot of goalies are looking like Martin Brodeur and Patrick Waugh against the Jets these days, and Tristan Jarry was the guy that was that way in the first half. Was there a sense of frustration? I mean, did they get away from their game? And do you think that has to do with the fact that they were getting tons of opportunities but were unable to capitalize on them?
I wonder if that's the reason for the sort of change in style of play. Frustration played a part in it. I thought that maybe that they just found it too easy too early and didn't quite get to the game they wanted. I will say, Huss, there was a sense of frustration in the post-game presser. I think Kyle Connor did a great job of being honest about how Winnipeg had struggled, how much difficulty they had getting to the right areas of the ice. He went as far as to say that the Jets haven't particularly been generating in the last couple of games. And, I think that that's the sort of feeling that you have when you're Kyle Connor and you lose the handle on a breakaway. That doesn't happen, right? He said 9 out of 10 times he holds on to that puck. I think that's more like 99 out of 100. The guy is, deadly in those situations, and he's misfiring. And, he misfired at other points in the game too. I don't think he was as on it. Andrew Kopp as well showed some frustration in the post game. And maybe it is wearing on them a little bit. I like their control of the flow of play overall. In Vancouver, second game of a back-to-back, I believe I didn't stress out. To me, I wasn't going to take that game home and say that that's, a sign of the Winnipeg Jets forever. And I still thought that they were pretty good at 5-on-5 that game. So I don't think that they're falling apart or should be incredibly frustrated from process sense other than the third period of last night. But they're not winning. Their special teams are costing themselves points and wins. And I think that maybe when you're used to getting results and you're not getting them, and then you can see the things that you didn't do well, that probably sits with you a lot heavier than when everything is going smooth.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, especially on that point you just made about the special teams. And we spent a lot of oxygen talking about the issues on the penalty kill. We haven't spent as much time talking about the power play, but I think we might have to have that conversation right now, Murat, because at one of their last 18 chances, the inability to score with some pretty glorious power play opportunities has been another part of, a couple regulation losses and definitely some points left on the table over the past week.
Yeah, in the same way that, Paul Maurice made the point early that you could have a rough penalty kill really early and then be wearing that stat for a long time. Winnipeg had a great power play early, the first half of the season so far. I think that they moved the puck around quickly. They were getting that one-timer from Josh Morrissey. Kyle Connor was scoring. Everything seemed to be going well. And then in the last several games, it's fallen off. And I think that if you look at the, where they are, in the middle of the NHL table, you still think it's pretty good. I don't think it's been pretty good in recent times. And, that late game the other night on the road trip last week, they had the opportunity to make a big push and it didn't work out. That 4-on-3 for an extended period of time in overtime as well. Like there are times when they look slow and unwilling to be incisive in a way that they were early. I'm not sure that I'm still at like the panic stage about that in terms of how many goals they're costing themselves, but they have missed out on wins as a direct result of that power play not quite firing. And when they're losing in close games as they've been, that's part of it. That's the way that they could dig themselves out of the penalty kill hole. And when that comes off it and they're losing the game at special teams with playing well on 5-on-5, it's like the opposite of years past when their goaltending would do everything and special teams would be all right. And while you'd say, well, the 5-on-5 game isn't good, a team that's going to go deep needs to have, at least 2 or 3 of those things working, goaltending, both special teams, and 5-on-5 play. And you'd like to see Winnipeg get to that.
Now, I'm speaking of 5-on-5 play. You can't just remove special teams. It's a big part of the game, and you just kind of laid it out. I mean, it's been a big contributor to the fact that they have left some points on the table of some games that they probably played well enough to win. But, looking at, maybe we'll take out the final third period of the game last night, because that was a big departure, I think, from what we'd seen over the past week and a half. But just your thoughts on the way the team had been playing at 5-on-5, despite the fact, I don't know what their shooting percentage is over the course of the last 4 or 5 games, but I imagine it's far below even an average number for this Winnipeg Jets team. But I mean, it's hard to pick apart too much about what the team's been doing at 5-on-5 for the better part of the last couple of weeks, because minus the goals, everything else looked pretty good, at least from where I've been sitting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you want to look just at shot attempts, expected goals, high danger chances, those types of metrics that we kind of use as a proxy towards flow of play, quality of play, all that sort of stuff. I mean, that line with Connor, Dubois, and Wheeler, they're on the better side of 50% in all of those stats. Kopp, Scheifele, and Ehlers are pretty good as well. Lowry, Harkins, and Svechnikov, they're above 50% in all those metrics as well. And why that third line hasn't scored together? They haven't given anything up yet either. And the offense isn't there, but Winnipeg's playing in a way that they've controlled the flow of the play in this last stretch. And, eye test wise, I like the way they break out. They have more options. They'll go to the middle of the ice and then out. It's not just that slash breakout from previous years. We've seen stretch passes. I saw a Sport Logic stat that Nate Schmidt is leading the NHL in terms of stretch passes completed. That's not something you'd see from Winnipeg Jets hockey in recent seasons, not by any stretch. And I think by having players on the back end who move the puck as well as they do, but also sort of adding more options to how Winnipeg gets out of the zone, they're doing that a lot better than in recent years. Once they get into the neutral zone, they have more options for that next pass. They'll pass, I call it underneath the coverage to a defenseman jumping up the wall. So now you have a 4-on-3. You see, that was the old Dustin Byfuglien special once upon a time. You're seeing that again in Winnipeg. And they're attacking the line with numbers and then keeping the puck there. There's a lot of good things. You'd like to see them get to the middle offensively a little bit more. You'd like to see plays. I think Winnipeg's gotten beat on some of there's a rebound, like last night, for example, and Brendan Dillon's second to get to that rebound that Danton Heinen catches for the game-winning goal. I think that's cost Winnipeg sometimes. There are things that you can point to and you don't like. But on the whole of it, 5-on-5, where most of the game gets played, where process stats like shot attempts and shots and all that stuff generally do correlate with success over the long run, Winnipeg's good at that. This is the most important single piece of the game, probably outside of goaltending, which Winnipeg has Connor Hellebuck. So they should be able to build to a solid foundation and solid success from where they're at, from as far as I can tell.
Now let's talk about the makeup of the lines. I mean, it's been a hot topic in town, really coming out of the LA game 2 Saturdays ago into the Edmonton series. About the line changes that happened. And I reminded people yesterday, I mean, the Jets were really stymied in that game against the LA Kings. They went about 35 minutes with, I think, 3 or 4 shots on net. We saw a different look in the first period from the second period to the third period in that game. The way things ended up, Blake Wheeler and Evgeny Svechnikov moved, swapped spots. Wheeler was playing with Connor and Dubois, and that line went into the Edmonton game. And there were already people up in arms on it. I kind of understood what Maurice was doing. I mean, a lot of times when you're having a tough time getting things going, you do change things up a little bit. And he certainly wasn't going to do anything with Connor and Dubois together. And I was definitely a proponent of putting Scheifele and Ehlers together. But for whatever reason, Blake Wheeler's become a bit of a lightning rod amongst much of the fan base. And there's a lot of people that said, they just look at a couple losses and say, well, Maurice has screwed everything up by putting Wheeler with those guys, and that's what's killing the Jets. I think listen, I think they've had some games that have been better than others, and I certainly didn't like the penalty that he took against Vancouver, and I think there maybe was less gas in the tank for him personally at the end of those 3 games in 4 nights. But I also think it's an erroneous assumption that, that one move and that one player has blown everything up. You kind of dug into the numbers. What's the truth about that? How has this line done? How does it compare to when Svechnikov was? And do you believe that move is contributing to some of the issues the Jets are having on the scoreboard right now? Because we've just sort of gone through the way that they've been playing at 5-on-5 has actually, by the numbers, been pretty good when it comes to generating scoring chances as opposed to what you're giving up.
Yeah, let me start with, when a team is killing penalties at a 60% rate and giving up multiple PK goals against, many nights of the season, to point to anything other than that as a reason for a slide, especially on a 3 games in 4 nights sort of scenario where there's the back-to-back. Like, I think that the driving story should not be the line combinations. At the same time, the line combinations exist, and they have promoted Blake Wheeler to Connor and Dubois. And Blake Wheeler has been a lightning rod in times past, because everybody knows that at his age and the way aging curves work, and the fact that you can watch and say, well, he's not as fast as he was 5 years ago when he turned the corner on people regularly, drove to the net, was an absolute bulldog of a player. I think that there's this sense that the smart thinking fan can see him slow down and not dominate games, and points to that. And points to the fact that it exists in the context of Paul Maurice often leaning on Wheeler, like a bit disproportionately in years past with Connor Scheifele and Wheeler. And I think that because that's an observation you can easily make, like he's slower. That's similar to me when broadcasts lean a little bit too heavily on who won which faceoff or what the matchup happens to be. I think these are simple, easy things that we can sort of look at. I think at the end of the day, that line is leaning on other teams at 5-on-5. And yes, Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois are driving it. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is driving it more than anybody, but Connor's right there too in terms of speed and picking up those plays after Dubois leads in transition and bullies people and takes guys one-on-one. If that line is outchancing other teams, isn't that good? Does Blake Wheeler need to be the driver for that to work? If Lowry's line with Svechnikov on it is also outchancing other teams, isn't that good? Especially because we're talking about one of the smallest sample sizes, just a few games worth of play, which we usually don't use to extrapolate what the future is going to look like. And what we can do when there's a small sample is we can go away from the numbers and look at how it's actually looked. Yes, Blake Wheeler is the slowest player on his line and the least dominant player on his line right now, but we also know that they played 3 games in 4 nights. There's a back-to-back involved. The odds should be stacked against that line having any success at all. They call it a schedule loss, I guess, when you play 3 games in 4 nights and there's a back-to-back. And they're still pushing a team around at 5-on-5, more or less. Yes, they'll need to generate more actual goals, but I think that'll come. I don't think that, Blake Wheeler not dominating is the same as him killing every play. I don't think him as not being an elite first-line player like he was for so many years is the same as him being a bad, unproductive player. The third line hasn't fallen apart. Kopp, Scheifele, and Ehlers are pretty good. I think it's the sort of thing you can keep looking at until the goals start coming in.
I have to agree with you on that one. I mean, listen, and some people, Chef Richard said, well, the record says it all. I mean, I don't know if the record does say it all. I mean, and to your point, the Vancouver game, and if you want to give it to Wheeler, give it for a careless penalty that ended up putting them down that, you just simply can't penalty. Take. It was a terrible one. And I'm here for that conversation. But as far as, that being completely blown up at 5-on-5, I just don't think that is based in reality right now. But here's the thing. Wheeler might be the lightning rod right now, and that might be sucking up a lot of the conversations among Jets fans, or when people want to go off on Twitter, that's what they're talking about. But I do wonder, Mark Scheifele hasn't been that productive as well either. And, maybe he's a younger player, more established. He's a top center. Maybe he gets a little bit more slack from the fan base. But I do wonder your thoughts on where Scheifele is right now and how that line has looked. Because, again, they've had some great chances and they have, had some success. But are you still waiting for more from 55 right now, coming out of COVID and being out earlier this season?
I think so. I think the expectation is that Mark Scheifele dominates the impact of a game. We criticize sometimes his defensive play. Well, last night he made a goal-saving defensive play, and he's been doing that a little bit more regularly. Yes, yes, he can float high looking for offense sometimes, but I mean, he's a little bit better at that front. And I think that, there used to be a major concern there, and I don't think it's a major concern right now. I think that there's some process things, even as he kind of, will, like last night, there was a particularly long shift. There's moments where you can see him leaning and all of that. There's room to criticize his game. At the same time, I think he is getting to good spots. He is looking dynamic with the puck on his stick, perhaps in a way that Blake Wheeler isn't right now. Just like from the eye test, I think of that play where he got pushed over, was on his knees, and held onto the puck, made a nice pass out of that as well. There's moments I think you can point to where he looks dynamic. I still think, though, that if he is the number one center on the team, and he might not be right now, let's be honest, then there's a level of production that he needs to get to. And if he's sort of in a tough spot where if he's an all-offense player, then Team Canada won't pick him. If he both because it's too much on defense, he may not believe he'll get the offense. I don't know. That's not a fair argument necessarily. I think he's been pretty good, and I don't know. I haven't seen the thing. There's something in the back of my mind, Huss. I got to say, a small sample size record is a horrible argument for quality of play. It's a horrible argument. You think of Mark Scheifele going down to injury for 16 games in 2017-18, best Jets team that we've seen in a long time. That Jets team went on a tear with Brian Little, Nick Ehlers, and Matthew Perreault as the top line at that time. Blake Wheeler playing second-line center duties, I believe, if I recall correctly. Does that mean that Mark Scheifele should never play for the Winnipeg Jets because they were winning without him? I don't know. It's such a definitive thing to be able to say, well, they lost, therefore everything's wrong. But I have no time for that one personally.
Wise words from our friend Murat of The Athletic here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Well, while we're talking about that line, what have you thought about Ehlers? I mean, I think he's had some moments, but if we want to go down a list of guys who I think there's still more that they can get out of, I think 27's near the top of the list too.
I agree with that. And I'm always telling you, I believe this player is one of the best at 5-on-5, at this point. If you look at his last couple of seasons leading into this one, he scored more at 5-on-5 per minute than any other Jets player. At times more than even Blake Wheeler in his prime during the time when he was one of the best 5-on-5 players on the planet. I have time for Nick Ehlers as a player that should dominate at even strength, and he hasn't. He absolutely has not. The speed has looked momentary, I would say. The incision has been momentary, and by incision, I mean going from the outside to the middle, generating those quality chances, taking those first shot shooting opportunities, backing guys off and then beating them with his speed. I don't think that he's been particularly great on the puck. And certainly when you lose that perfect transition game of his, he's not so dominant in his own zone that he's still controlling the impact of a game. Transition is his bread and butter. So when you lose that and you lose a little bit of the offense as well, I don't think he's looked particularly good either. Paul Maurice referenced a hamstring injury, I think it was. I believe that. I think that, Nick Ehlers does look like he's maybe recovering from an injury or lost a little bit, early on. And I just think that it's completely fair to say you want more from him. You want a lot more from him. You hope that it's just an injury and then it's the sort of thing he recovers from and hits that stride. But you can point at him and say that, yeah, if Winnipeg's to be better, if that offense is going to come back, Nick Ehlers should be driving that bus because that's the kind of player that he should be, right up there with Mark Scheifele offensively.
Well, no doubt about it, and that's why I'm still so bullish on this line. I've been hoping to see Scheifele and Ehlers play together. I hope that they'll stick with it because I do think there's a lot going. The potential for that line is huge. But it is funny. I'll say this: the most consistent player on that line this season is neither Scheifele or Ehlers. It's been Andrew Kopp.
Yeah, in the same way, it would be strange for longtime Jets fans to think Blake Wheeler is the least effective player on his line. All of these guys that chime in on the offseason, Andrew Copp's not an offensive player, shouldn't be in the top 6, all that sort of stuff. Well, he's the most effective player on his line a lot of nights, and he is producing offensively, has produced offensively. He's still, that two-way player as well. And I think that he gives you less completely head-scratching moments, right? Like Nick Ehlers getting hurt by a shot block, skating to 5 feet from the bench on consecutive nights, and not changing and having a more effective guy unbruised come on and take his place from that range is a head-scratching moment. You can look at decisions and you can wonder, why would Andrew Kopp is not that player. He's been consistent. He's been a driver in a lot of ways. And I'm with you. I want to see that line for long enough to see everybody kind of get to 100% and see what it can do because all the parts are there. All the pieces are there.
The Jets are hoping that Paul Stastny's going to be back in the lineup. I do believe he's going to be, going into or going on the trip. Whether it happens in Seabus, whether it happens in Minnesota, how do you think things look when Stastny returns to the lineup, and what changes happen as a result of him coming back?
I wonder if the easiest thing for the Jets to do would be to put him at third line left wing and beside Adam Lowry, or share center duties with Adam Lowry on that group. It would come at the expense of Jansen Harkins, who I think after a great preseason and a pretty slow, mediocre start has sort of rounded back up, using his speed a little bit more effectively. I like that pass to Svechnikov, even if Harkins kind of took himself out of the play a little bit. I liked Harkins' pass to, I think it was Neil Pionk, and Sidney Crosby made a great defensive play on him. I've liked a lot from Jansen Harkins, but I think in terms of the so-called pecking order and all of that, and looking at the fact that Paul Stastny was effective when healthy on this team, I think that that's probably the easiest place to go. You can keep Svechnikov there if you like, and I continue to want to see more from the top six as it's currently constructed, because I think they'll start to and then continue to outscore teams once they get going.
Well, hitting the road tomorrow, 3 games in 4 nights. Tomorrow in Seabus, Friday afternoon in the Twin Cities, and then Saturday night against the Calgary Flames. Another 3 and 4, another back-to-back. And it's a little different than before when you're feeling good, you're already rolling coming in. I would imagine that we'll see a desperate hockey team tomorrow, or certainly you'd hope to see that plays with a little bit of urgency and desperation. But also, I think we expect the guy wearing number 80 to be ready to go for his first game back in his former home of Columbus. What are you looking for tomorrow night, Murat?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I can be a little bit snobby. I don't go to the go-to narrative all the time. I want to look beneath the surface. This is the Pierre-Luc Dubois show. This is 100% Pierre-Luc Dubois against, I guess, Jack Roslovic. I believe Patrick Line is not going to be playing. So having that storyline and having Pierre-Luc Dubois playing so well, and we don't know what the reasons why he left, but I assume he's not best friends with literally every single Columbus Blue Jacket. So that's like a little bit of fun, isn't it? I mean, going against his old teammates and playing in a way that his old team probably wished that he had played early on last season as well. I like that. I hope he takes guys aggressively one-on-one like he did last night and has done for so long. I hope he throws his weight around. I hope he has a big night. I like that kind of storyline. And I'm also really curious to see what Jack Roslovic unleashed from third and fourth line duties, as he was so displeased about for so long. I'd like to kind of see where he's at right now as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be a really interesting and busy 3-4 days, 3 games in 4 days for the Winnipeg Jets. And just quickly about goaltending, I think Hellebuck's looked great as of late. Probably deserves maybe a couple more in the win column with the way that he's played. Are we thinking Eric Comrie for the game on Saturday night, or do they maybe go Comrie in Minnesota in the afternoon to give Connor a couple days in between starts?
You always ask me the toughest, Eric Comrie questions about when he's going to get in, and I haven't sussed it out. So to hear you explain it that way, to sort of make that afternoon to evening transition, and that they're flying as well back-to-back days, and the timing's a little bit awkward, to maybe give Connor Hellebuck the more comfortable of those two scenarios makes sense to me. I like that. I should also say, sorry to completely left field this, but at the end of last game, you saw Blake Wheeler come off that Connor Dubois line for one shift. And there was a question about that. I saw everybody so excited on the internet that, he's not on the top line anymore. I think there's a chance, because the next 5-on-5 shift Winnipeg had, they went to 4 forwards and a defenseman, setting up the goalie pull, and they got scored on. And so I think there's a chance that was just about setting Blake Wheeler up to not be on that 6-on-5 situation upcoming. So I'm also curious to see just how short of a leash Paul Maurice does have with his lines, and if he goes back and keeps what he's got going, and for how long that lasts.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that. We haven't spoken since the Vancouver game, but I mean, and again, there was the penalty. I thought that was probably the weakest game for him personally amongst over this course of this past week. But at the end of the game, when they were chasing it in a situation that Blake Wheeler would have just about always been on the ice, he wasn't there on Friday.
No, and I think that signifies that there is an acknowledgement of where he's at in his career. There are other more dangerous players, and that doesn't have to mean he's awful or horrible or any awful words. It just means that Winnipeg has other more impactful players right now. And I think it's good that they're recognizing that and giving those opportunities to players who are making it happen. Should Blake Wheeler turn things around and go from snake bitten to burying everything, well, then you can make the argument for him to pop right back up into that role. And I think that they were setting up to do that exactly the same thing again last night. So we'll see how that evolves as the year goes on.
Murat, thanks so much for doing this. Hey, before we go, I know you and the folks at The Athletic have a big sale going on right now. If anyone has been foolish enough not already to be a subscriber, it's pretty much a how can you say no offer going on right now.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, there are sales often, but this is the best one. $1 a month for 12 months. So you're looking at a year for $12.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, that's a pretty good deal. and I appreciate those. So also, if you would be so kind, find any one of my stories, click through to the paywall of that, sign up, and then I get to look good, and I like looking good.
Nice.
To all the powers that be. I love the job. So, yeah, hop on and read what we've got. I like to do the deep dives. I like to provide as much evidence as I can. Why am I selling myself? This has just been a fun chat. Thank you.
Hey, you know what? No, listen, sometimes you got to do it. And, I mean, listen, I don't even know what rate I subscribed at. I did it for 3 years. I will always be there because the content, both for the Winnipeg Jets with the work you're doing, and being a big sports guy, so many great national writers. I mean, it has always been money well spent, and this is barely even paying for it at $1 a month. So go do that. Make sure you click through Murat's article. Hey, have a great one, my friend. We'll talk to you next week and enjoy these next few busy days for the Jets out on the road.
Right on. Enjoy the curling.
Appreciate it. There he is, Murat Atesh of The Athletic at WPG Murat. And, just hit him up on Twitter. And if you haven't already subscribed to The Athletic, what the heck are you waiting for? All right. I, of course, am in Saskatoon, finishing up the show and getting ready to head back down to see some more great curling action as the Canadian top teams battle to be Canada's representative. Of course, Princess Auto, great supporter of Jen Jones, who's 4-0, Mike McEwen, who's 2-0 right now, and a great supporter of curling around the country. Of course, Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list is at Princess Auto, or start something new as well. Priding ourselves on helping you create the ideas in your head and making them come to reality. Family-owned, Canada-wide, headquartered right here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. 2 local locations for you to walk in or get those wheels turning in your head and shop online at princessauto.com 24/7, 365. And speaking of Princess Auto, let's do a special Princess Auto curling report and welcome in our good friend Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun, who's joining us live from the bunker at the SaskTel Center as we get underway with the first action of today. Men on the ice this afternoon. Big matchups for the women tonight. Teddy, great to have you back on the program. How are things down at the rink?
Really good, man. Just getting underway here with a men's draw. Obviously, it's been tense since day one here, but it's getting real tense now as we get down into the final half of the draws out of this 8-game round robin for these teams. Obviously, some teams with their backs against the wall right now, and obviously some teams that are having a chance to really try and separate themselves. So, the thing I love the most about the Olympic trials is that every game is just so important. And of course, it'll be no different today.
Well, there's some, great teams that had realistic hopes of being that representative that are almost in must-win situations. Let's focus in on the men first and the Manitobans. We had the Battle of Manitoba yesterday. Big win for Mike McEwen. They have looked good, and they put up some big numbers. Very different starts for the McEwen group and the Gunlickson group. And, of course, Gunner, as we talked about yesterday, sort of got the short straw, if you will, having to have the bye first round, having everyone else play. He lost to Epping and then really took one on the chin from the McEwen rank, who's playing with quite a bit of confidence right now, Ted.
Yeah, they really are. And I had a chance to talk to Mike yesterday, and I asked him what it is about the Olympic trials that seems to suit him, because the last time I saw him playing with this kind of fire in his eye, I really believe was at the 2017 trials in Ottawa, where he was everything just seemed to be working so well for him. And he said, I'm just chill. I feel chill right here at this event, just as I did in Ottawa, very similar. And, you can really tell because he's really calm about everything that he's doing, and he's just playing with that precision. Now, of course, you can't get too excited if you haven't played Gushu and you haven't played Cooey and you haven't played all those top teams yet. But it's a nice start for McEwen. He's, that's a team that has been together a while, has a lot of talent. And I think, they're always going to be able to be close to that playoff line. Not necessarily saying they get there, but they're certainly going to be in the mix.
Well, I'll tell you what, and when Mike McEwen is feeling it and he's playing with confidence, he can beat anybody. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, he was right down, one shot away from being Canada's representative 4 years ago. And it's sort of interesting coming in. We talked about it on the Rocks yesterday. When you look at odds and, where money's coming in and who people are supporting, there was a lot of people sort of sleeping on the McEwen rank. Maybe they hadn't been as good this year overall compared to some of those others. But when you come to an event like this, having that prior experience is important. Having success against these other teams is a big part of it. And, I got a chance to talk to Reed Carruthers last night, and you can kind of feel a real quiet confidence amongst this team right now, growing by the day.
Yeah, and I had a chance to talk to Brad Gushu not too long ago before the start of this, and one of the things that he said, Huss, that really set this Olympic trials up is that how you're playing coming into this thing almost never seems to factor into how you play when you get to this thing. It's just such a different beast, and there's so much pressure. And as we've seen with teams like Matt Dunstone and Brendan Botcher, it's like if you just are just a little bit off, you can all of a sudden be 0-3 and, you're one loss away from being completely out of this thing. And it's only Tuesday. It's just, it happens so fast out there, and you can't afford too many slip ups. And like I said, even the teams that are red hot coming in sometimes just don't have it when they get here. McEwen's team wasn't playing that great coming in here, but they look great so far. One team, though, that has been playing absolutely great all year and still is, Tracy Fleury. Holy mackerel, is that team ever on fire. She shoots a cool 100% in their win last night and over Krista McCarville. And honestly, that was just, they're just looking so good.
Yeah, the poor McCarville team was back home drinking White Claws and tweeting out watching the broadcast of which they were the feature matchup. They were already at the hotel by the time it was going on. So win for them. It was kind of funny, but just a buzzsaw. Just, hey, before we get to the women, because there are, a number of Manitoba stories going into a huge night tonight. This afternoon, we do have the top two dogs right now, undefeated Brad Gushu, undefeated Brad Jacobs. For my money, Jacobs has been the better team. I think Brad Gushu has been, I don't want to say lucky, but fortunate on a couple of occasions, both against Cooey and against Epping. Some openings with great shots, but that could have been big numbers that didn't come to fruition, survived them all. But man, for Gushu, this is the biggest test so far going up against Jacobs, who has been phenomenal.
Yeah, he has, and he often is at the Olympic trials. He's won this thing before. And obviously, the thing is with the Jacobs team, though, is that since 2014, when they won the Olympic trials, they have not been, and they won the Olympics, by the way, which is obviously amazing, but they have not been able to crack to the top of one of these major events. They've been so close at the Brier. I think they had the most wins at the Brier over a 5-year period without ever winning the title. It just, they would just lose at the wrong time all the time. So I'm going to have to say that I watch for that again here, that if, that team, although great, they have to show us at the right time for me to really believe in them. Brad Gushu, he has done it. He's got 3 of the last 4 Briers. He's been an absolute, 3 of the last 5, I guess it is, but he really has been so good, so surgical with everything. And you say, yeah, he got a couple of breaks, but when you're getting a couple of breaks against Cooey and a couple of breaks against Epping and you're winning, and only a couple of breaks, you're still doing something very right, because it takes more than that to beat those great teams.
Well, no doubt about it. I just meant, you rarely see a game that Brad Gushu is in where if a guy makes a shot, they might be putting up 4 or putting up 5. And that was the case in both of those matchups. But again, we're talking about incredibly difficult shots that even the best guys in the world weren't able to navigate. So you certainly do make a great point. Other games this afternoon, Gunlickson going up against Tanner Horgan and John Epping going up against Matty Dunstone. Is, unfortunately, a real rough start. I mean, both Dunstone and Bosch are shockingly 0-3, but I think that just speaks to just how strong this field is. All right, let's get back to the women. You mentioned Tracy Fleury. She's going up against Rachel Holman tonight in a matchup. Honestly, like a playoff game for Holman. They had those tough losses early on against teams that really weren't ranked at the top of it, which means that if they want to be there in that final top three, they're going to have to take out all of the teams at the top of the table. But right now, Ted, as you laid it out, there is no tougher out than going up against Tracy Fleury, who was the clear favorite going in, which I think is a surprise to people if they just sort of show up and follow the sport every time the Scotties turns around. There's probably bigger names, but there's been no better team in the women's game coming into this event.
I don't have the exact number with me right now, but I think it's like 32 or 33-5 this season. That is a remarkable number. And it's coolness, it's calmness, it's collectedness, and they are just making things happen when they're on the ice. The game's not particularly close, certainly not the one against McCarville, and I must say that was one of the funniest curling tweets I've ever seen from that team McCarville. Big shout out to them because that was really something. You got to be able to have humor about yourself, and I thought that was great. But, Team Fleury, again, it is interesting because Carrie Anderson is the hottest team in Canada for the last 2 years. She won the Scotties. Tracy Fleury's team, Tracy Fleury did not play in the Scotties last year because she was home with her child who was ill and is better now, which is fantastic. And Chelsea Carey took over. They were okay. They were reasonably close at the Scotties, but not right there. But since Tracy's come back this year, it's just been full speed ahead. And the whole team tells me how comfortable they feel. And you look at Selena Negevin and Liz Fife and Kirsten McCush, they've been together almost a decade. They've had different skips over those years, including Carrie Anderson, but they've really settled into a groove right here. And I think it's really showing in this biggest of events. There will be adversity. There's no doubt about it. But so far, they've just looked absolutely fantastic. And, interestingly, they're not even in first place right now because there's another Winnipeg team that's actually ahead of them.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Jen Jones in just a second, but we're a huge opportunity to go for the throat tonight against Rachel Holman, who struggled out of the gate. They got their win yesterday. And one other just thing on Tracy Fleury, I'm not sure that there's a bigger star in the sport of curling on either the men's side or the women's side, Ted, that has a lower profile than Tracy Fleury.
Well, she's very quiet. I mean, it's hard to get many words out of her, even for those of us in the media who are always trying to do so. Huge smile on her face, very nice person, no doubt about it, but she's quiet and she's reserved with the way she, approaches life. And so you're not going to get that high profile out of her. But I will say this, I mean, we were talking the other day, I said, is there a better person you'd want to be drawing a rock in curling when you need it than Brad Gushu, because he's just money at that. And one of my colleagues said, well, Tracy Fleury, that's what the reputation she's getting is just as a stone cold killer, I guess is the word I'm looking for when she's drawing. And she's got that. I made the joke today that she's just shy and nice and sweet on the outside and a Terminator on the inside.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the way it's looked so far. We'll see if she can do the job tonight, continue her undefeated streak to begin the event, and take out Rachel Holman, one of the pre-tournament contenders that many people thought we'd see on the weekend. That might not happen if she can't continue to keep winning games. Well, you mentioned Jen Jones, the GOAT. I was watching the Bucks last night play on Monday Night Football while Jen Jones was on the other TV, and we're watching the Jets, and I'm thinking about Jones being 4-0 in this event. And it reminded me of Tom Brady last year with the Bucks, going to a new team, and then just when it all said and done, who's the last man standing? Tom Brady with the title. I mean, Jen Jones is the GOAT in her own right, but I'm not sure a lot of people had them at 4-0. I mean, how impressed have you been with the Jones rink? And are we getting a little bit of Double J magic right now at the most important time of the year?
Well, we absolutely are. And I mean, I don't want to take anything away from what they've accomplished because 4-0 is fantastic. They've beaten the teams they should beat to get to 4-0. They've still got Fleury, they've still got Holman, they've still got Anderson on the schedule ahead of them. So the real test is still coming. But they've got 4 games left. If they win 2 of them, they're in these playoffs. And that's pretty huge. And I do believe that Jen, I think Jen is a contender to win absolutely every event she goes to, and her whole team. This is a fantastic team, has been for years, hasn't changed a whole lot over the last 10 years other than Jocelyn Peterman replacing Jill Officer. And they have added Elisa Weigel, who's, an all-star caliber lead, who's their second lead, and they kind of spell things off. And they have that ability with this 5-player team to have depth and just so much skill all throughout the lineup. I would never be surprised. It would never shock me to see Janet Jones win any event. She's been right there for years. She hasn't always come out on top, but she's always close. And when it comes to the Olympic trials, she's done it before. She's calm. She knows what it takes to be successful here. And she also knows very well that 4-0 doesn't get you anything. And there's still a long road ahead here. But really great start, no doubt about it.
Well, and this sets up a huge game, more so for the Einerson rink than for the Jones rink right now. I mean, Jen's 4-0. Carrie's got 2 losses on her record right now. I mean, 3 might get you there. 4 certainly won't. What have you made of the Einerson squad so far, and can they get this huge win to sort of turn around and get right back into the thick of things, battling for one of the spots in the final 3?
I think they already are right back in the thick of things, to be honest. When you look at these standings at 2 wins, there's only 2 teams that have better than 2 wins, and that's Fleury and Jones. Right now, Anderson's in there with Scheidegger and Harrison and themselves at 2 wins. So I don't think that, I would say that I like their chances still of being one of those playoff teams. Homan is going to be the team that I watch as well to get up there. I mean, these other teams are good, but the 4 teams that what I think should be contending for those 3 spots are Jones, Anderson, Fleury, and Homan. And I do think they will be when it comes right down to it in the end. Some really nice stories here so far, especially the Harrison team winning 2 games and beating Anderson and Homan. You got to be kidding me, man. That would be an incredible story if they get in here. And they're going to have a little bit of a lighter schedule going forward. So it's really kind of going to be interesting to watch.
No, it certainly is. Tonight, TSN 7 o'clock will be the women's draw featuring Tracy Fleury going up against Rachel Holman and the all-Manitoba matchup between Jennifer Jones and Carrie Einerson. Ted, as we spoke yesterday, you're not just following the Manitoba teams covering this event for Post Media Coast to Coast. What are the big things you're talking about today and working on for tonight as well as tomorrow in the Winnipeg Sun?
Well, I've got a feature coming on the brother-sister combination of Tanner Horgan and Tracy Fleury. They grew up together in Sudbury, Ontario. They've got a huge family contingent here. They're cheering for each other, obviously. And of course, actually the 5th player on Tanner Horgan's team is Jacob Horgan, the younger brother of that group. Tanner and Tracy are 12 years difference in age. So they didn't really grow up curling together, but they certainly have leaned on each other over the years. And I think it makes for a real nice story. But they're both here together. It's pretty cool.
No doubt. And I was funny. I was reading that about just the history of Tracy Fleury because I didn't know a lot about her and kind of realized all of that. But let me tell you, the people of East St. Paul, Manitoba, and Manitoba in general are more than happy to have Tracy Fleury part of the Buffalo crew, especially with what they're doing so far. Ted, I'll let you get back out there. Thanks so much for doing this. I'll see you down at the rink a little bit later on tonight.
Right on, Huss. Thanks, man.
There it is. Ted Wyman of the Winnipeg Sun on Twitter at Ted_Wyman, covering the Canadian Olympic curling trials for Post Media. And of course, all his work at winnipegsun.com, as well as a YouTube series he's doing at this event all week long called On the Rocks. All right, let's get Remis back in your Reem. Do you have the tweet that we were talking about from the McCarville rink? This was pretty fun. Just to reset, McCarville was going up against Fleury last night. Gave up 3 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the third. I think they got another point, then gave up another half dozen or something like that. Anyways, they moved them off of the main game, shook hands shortly thereafterwards, and here the girls are. You know you had a bad night when you get home to watch the end of the broadcast that you were in the feature game. No giving up here. We'll be better tomorrow. Next game Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And they're drowning their sorrows with a wine, a couple White Claws, watching the curling still go on back at the hotel. But nothing's easy in an event with this level of competition between the best that Canada has to offer. Remo, you're appreciative of good social media work. The Carnival team did a pretty good job, made some new fans, even if they had a very, very tough night at the office.
Yeah, I think you like to see that even elite teams can have an ordinary day. And I mean, the selfie with the sad faces and the White Claw bottle of wine, that's, as long as you're doing it responsibly, that's a good way to try to forget about your performance. Pretty funny that, watching the broadcast that you were supposed to be the feature game in. So hopefully, they can reset, but I think we're focused here, on all the Manitoba teams, and I mean, there's so many to choose from. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm interested to see what the feature game is tonight. I mean, you'd have to think it's going to involve one of the Manitoba teams. It's either going to be Holman versus Tracy Fleury, or it'll be Jennifer Jones versus Carrie Anerson. May as well. This is a perfect transition into our Coolbet lines of the day. And by the way, if you are into curling, doing some special curling content with Chris Abbott here in Saskatoon, you can see those at Coolbet Canada on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of their socials, as well as I'll retweet some of them as well. So it's Scheidegger and Rock. Scheidegger minus 238. Kelsey Rock still winless, plus 173 underdog. And then the Jones-Einerson game, really tight. Jen Jones, a favorite, minus 128. Carrie Einerson, right around even money at minus 103. Krista McCarville, minus 172 favorites against Jacqueline Harrison, who has that great record so far. Maybe some good value on Harrison at plus 128, the way they've been playing and the teams that they've beaten so far. And then Rachel Holman. You don't see Rachel Holman as a significant underdog very well, but that's exactly where she is going into tonight's draw. Plus 123 underdog. And the buzzsaw that is the Tracy Fleury team is minus 164. We'll be doing more content tomorrow from here on all the Coolbet socials. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the program. And we get to 3 draws a day for the next few days, beginning at 9 a.m., 2 p.m., and 7 p.m. here from Saskatoon. As far as the Coolbet lines for the National Hockey League tonight, we've had these massive Tuesday slates recently. Not tonight. Only 3 games this evening. Philly, plus 149 at Tampa to take on the Lightning. Lightning, minus 175 favorite. It was Pick'em earlier. Now the Oilers, a very slight underdog against the Dallas Stars at minus 105. Do like Edmonton in that game. And the Calgary Flames, a big favorite at home, minus 222 against the Blackhawks. Was talking about this on the Lock Shop earlier today with Dustin Nielsen. I'm liking Calgary, actually, to win by 2. Dusty had them in regulation. I'm going to take them on the puck line at plus 118 and maybe put that together. Maybe an all-Alberta parlay tonight on Coolbet. The other thing I do want to point you to on Coolbet, as well as the Lock Shop today, Dusty and I did the program just before we came on the air here at 1 o'clock. If you want to watch it, go to Twitter. I'll send out a couple of links at Nielsen TSN 1260 as well. It's all there. And then, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, just type in Lock Shop, subscribe. You'll get new content in on Tuesdays and Fridays. Friday's the big show, talking about the National Football League every week. As far as the NFL goes, we do have 3 games coming up on Thursday. The Lions, originally 3.5-point underdogs, now just 3-point underdogs. Did give that one out today. The line was 7 in the Raiders-Cowboys game. It's now 7.5 in favor of the Dallas Cowboys. And the Bills were 4.5-point favorites. That number is now 5.5, which is interesting after a pretty disappointing game for the Buffalo Bills, getting smoked at home by Jonathan Taylor, running all over them, and the Indianapolis Colts. We'll talk more about those games tomorrow on the program, heading into Turkey Day south of the border. And the latest in the Canadian Football League, a little update on these lines for the weekend. No changes from yesterday. Alouettes, 4.5-point underdogs in Hamilton in the early game in the East Semi. And then the Saskatchewan Roughriders, minus 2.5-point favorites against Calgary. All the odds up at Coolbet.com. If you haven't played with Coolbet before and you want to get into the curling or the football, the hockey, use the promo code WST on your first deposit. You'll get a 100% bonus up to $200 from our friends over at Coolbet. Remo, just quickly on the CFL, do we have a lean from you right now in this Calgary-Saskatchewan game?
I'm not betting on Saskatchewan. I'm taking Calgary in the points. I don't trust Cody Fajardo. This team hasn't been the same since they got smoked by the Bombers for 2 games. Calgary's on the upswing. I don't think Bill Levi Mitchell has been that great this year, but he's been there before. They got Bagleton. I don't know. Saskatchewan, they haven't convinced me of anything here in the second half. I'm going with Calgary on the road.
This is such a tough pick. Dusty and I were on opposite sides of it. I'm taking the Riders. He's on the Stamps for the game on the weekend. Maybe it's just because I want to see the Riders come to Winnipeg to make that December 5th game that much more special.
I don't think they're very good. I'm not sure.
Well, I like the Bombers' chances against Saskatchewan, absolutely. And the other thing, and we talked about this with Hammer yesterday, if Calgary wins, it would be very interesting for that to happen if for only the reason we can see all the guys decided that they weren't going to get vaccinated and their season ends in the West Semi and they can't go with their team and compete for a trip to the Grey Cup. Crazy.
Yeah, that would be disappointing. I see WST troll Ryan Friesen in the chat saying Calgary got owned by Sask. I'm taking the Riders. I mean, I'm looking at the point differentials for the year. The Riders, I mean, should be a 500 team. I don't know. They're points for 290, points against 284. I don't know how they ended up at 9-5, Huss. I like Calgary.
Well, getting smashed by the Bombers in those 2 games did a very, very big number on their point differential. I mean, that's the one thing you have to think of, in these cases. And I don't know what Ryan's talking about. I mean, these teams played 3 games, and that was when Calgary was struggling. They played 3 games over the course of, I believe, 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, and Calgary won the first 2. And then the Riders ended up getting the 3rd game. I mean, to me, this is close. I'm really excited to watch this football game. And even the East Semi as well with Montreal and Hamilton. I'll be honest, I haven't spent as much time this year watching what's been happening out in the East, really focusing in on the West. But I think all Bomber fans are going to be tuned in to see what happens between Calgary and Saskatchewan coming up. By the way, if you're jumping in late or you're here for the Jets talk and you do want to talk Bombers, we did have Adam Bighill join us earlier in the program. Check the replay of the podcast or the YouTube at your leisure. And, Remo, tomorrow, interesting show for us. We'll be getting ready for the Jets beginning this road trip against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Of course, the one thing missing, and for really unfortunate reasons, both injury and a death in the family, no Patrick Laine tomorrow, but everyone's going to be talking a lot about Pierre-Luc Dubois and even Jack Roslovic, who after a real tough stretch, playing on the 4th line, not getting many opportunities or ice time, broke out last night with a couple goals and just in time to see his old team tomorrow night. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I mean, one thing we know going by last night, Columbus, they scored 7 on Buffalo. And it's funny, I was watching the Jets game. I'm looking at the scoreboard. We had all these high-scoring games. Ottawa and Colorado went nuts. And that game, the Columbus game, went nuts. And here we are sitting at a 1-0, 1-1 game with the Jets, which I've seen described as a bit of a snooze fest. So we'll see how it goes tomorrow night. Pierre-Luc Dubois. Will we be seeing highlights of the shift from Dubois? Do you remember the shift? The one last year? Will it be shown on the broadcast? His final act? Will it be mentioned? It depends. On the TSN broadcast, probably not. On the Columbus Blue Jackets, 100%. 100% that will be the case. Tell you what, though, Dubois has been unbelievable this year for the Winnipeg Jets. For a guy that had so many question marks coming into the season, he has been one of, if not the best guy on most nights for the Winnipeg Jets. And I don't expect that to change tomorrow night as he reminds everyone in Seabus what he was all about and proving that he can be that guy that the Winnipeg Jets thought they were getting when they traded Patrick Laine. Of course, really unfortunate that Laine won't be in the game tomorrow night. We certainly hope he'll be healthy and back for his return to Winnipeg, which will certainly be a special night for all Winnipeg Jet fans. All right, again, folks, great curling tonight. You can check it out on TSN if you haven't seen it before. You haven't seen it, definitely tune in for this 7 o'clock game tonight between Einerson and Jones, Holman and Fleury, 2 huge matchups. And right now, while we do the show live, Mike McEwen on the ice against Brendan Botcher down at the SaskTel Center. I'm going to head over right now and catch the second half of the afternoon draw. Remo, one thing we need to do before we finish up, we need to confirm a time for Friday's show. Yeah, well, you said 11. I was going to say 10:30. Give some people for the podcast before the game if they want to. But if you want to do 11, I'm cool with 11 Friday. Well, I mean, I think doing it at 10:30 is just a weird time. I think we decide on either 10 or 11.
You can't do like 10:40? Is that?
How about 10:12?
Has to be on the hour. It has to be on the hour. You can't just pick a rando time. How about 10:50 on Friday? Sure. I'm good for 11. 11's good.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. So we'll go 11 a.m. And you know what? We'll talk probably a little bit about the Minnesota game, but because it'll be content that people will be getting in the afternoon, after work, heading into the weekend, I think that show will focus on the Jets, the Calgary Flames, as well as everything going on in football heading into the weekend. But we'll have real Jets-heavy shows the next couple days with the team starting this road trip out in Columbus tomorrow night.
Before we go, I need to bring this up. You know, it's big jersey reveal week. Canada revealing theirs. It's actually going to be on the TSN broadcast tonight of a women's game. But, well, I didn't think there's a big thing tomorrow. But the New Jersey third jerseys. They've never had one. Here it is. Are you people ready? All right. Yay or nay on this one. It's getting a lot of reaction online, of course, Hustler.
Traditionally, I love jerseys that just have script across them. I love that style. I was a fan, honestly, of the Aviators to extent. I mean, some people liked the colors, some didn't. I think they really grew on me. I love the numbers. But I'll admit, when I saw this jersey, I thought first, the best thing I saw was someone that said, wait till you see the rest of the uniform. And then it had the pants, and it just said pants on the pants. It's like jersey on the jersey. Apparently, hat. Exactly. So no shortage of funny jokes in and around it. I mean, it's okay. It doesn't really pop off. Normally, I think I'd be more into those. They wanted the black. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that, but what I did find interesting today, Remis, that was designed by Marty Brodeur.
Yeah, I found that interesting too, but I don't really. I mean, I don't mind the script. I'm not crazy about it. I think the numbers are the best part here. We don't see too many like 3D style numbers anymore that used to see a lot in the late 80s.
Let's see the numbers. I'll be honest. I didn't even notice that.
I don't have them out. You see how they're like the red kind of goes out at a bit of an angle here.
Oh, the block. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really nitpicking here, but I think they look like the Islanders, Brooklyn third jersey that they had before, or the Blackhawks Heritage Classic. I think these are a big L for me.
I was just about to say, if that's what we're comparing them to, I think it's official. L. 2 thumbs down.
Yeah, that's our jersey rating. We'll do our jersey rating for Canada tomorrow. It'll be pretty easy to follow up the 2018 Olympic jerseys. I thought everyone took an L on those in the tournament. So we'll see those. But I think this jersey, couldn't they have just done like black? I mean, I'm not a jersey designer, but I would like to be. But no, I don't think those are great. And I think the reaction online is justified.
Well, Canada, the jersey reveal, we'll be discussing it tomorrow. We'll get ready for the Jets and Columbus Blue Jackets and the rest of the road trip. A little more on the upcoming playoff week in the Canadian Football League. More here from Saskatoon at the Olympic curling trials as we follow our Manitobans, hopefully all the way to Beijing, and much, much more. Been a great show today. Thanks again to Michael Remis back at the headquarters of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and everyone that joined us today live on YouTube. Thanks to everyone on the podcast as well. If you can, give us a 5-star rating and a little review on iTunes. That certainly helps. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel on YouTube, just hit that red subscribe button. It's free. Keep you locked in on all the things we're doing here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and we certainly appreciate it. Big thanks again to all of our sponsors: Coolbet Canada, Canadian Club Whiskey, Nick and Nicky DQ, Boston Pizza, our curling sponsor, Princess Auto. Loving the Princess Auto curling reports here from Saskatoon with so much on the line. Little Brown Jug, Not Auto Corp, Royal Sports, Manitoba Battery, Culligan Water, and Vita Health Fresh Market. For Remo, I'm Huss. Have a great night, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow live on YouTube at 1 p.m. from Saskatoon and a little later on in your podcast feed for another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have a great one.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.